Hi everyone, my name is FlagonHG, and this is the video of my attempt at a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokémon HeartGold using only Nocturnal Pokémon. To see what I define as hardcore Nuzlocke rules, check out the description below. But in short, no items in battle, no overleveling past the gym leader's ace, and we're playing on set mode. So let's talk about Nocturnal Pokémon, or Pokémon that can only show up at nighttime. The year is 1999. After the success of the first generation of Pokémon games, Nintendo and Game Freak were tasked with creating a highly anticipated sequel. And as one has come to expect from the radical, envelope-pushing, risk-taking company that is Game Freak, they weren't just going to remake the same game all over again. No, they were going to introduce brand new, revolutionary concepts into the games that raised novel questions about the world of Pokémon. Like, how do Pokémon fuck? One of these concepts was the day and night cycle, where just like in the real world, the world of Pokémon Gold and Silver would change throughout the day. Not only would the aesthetic presentation of the game change based on the time of the day, but so would aspects of the gameplay. Two new evolutions brilliantly captured this phenomenon, where Eevee would evolve into Espeon during the day and Umbreon during the night. It was actually pretty cool at the time. And since its introduction, the night and day cycle has been a staple in Pokémon games going forward. And by a staple, I mean that Game Freak seemingly arbitrarily chooses how and when to incorporate this feature into each new game. But even if the night and day cycle does have its place in other Pokemon games, it's most closely tied to the Johto region, and it was refreshing that the remakes, HeartGold and Soul Silver, brought it back in its entirety. In HeartGold and Soul Silver, there are quite a few Pokemon that can only be found when playing the game at night. Specifically, these nighttime Pokemon can only be found in their respective routes from the hours of 8 p.m. to 3:59 a.m. I'm also lumping in Pokemon that can be found at night and in the early morning here, because it gives me like 2 more encounters, and both of these Pokemon are very clearly nocturnal Pokemon. And as a note, some of these Pokemon can technically be found in certain routes and certain areas during the daytime as well, but in the areas that I'll be catching them, they're exclusively found at nighttime, and they are therefore in the Bulbapedia article about nocturnal Pokemon. Anyways, this gives me 14 different evolutionary lines to choose from. However, Beedrill is exclusive to Soul Silver, which I actually didn't realize until after I started my playthrough in HeartGold, and Houndoom, Weavile, and Honchkrow aren't actually available until post-Elite Four. Also, you can't get a Duskstone pre-Elite Four without doing a bug-catching contest, so Misdreavus won't be evolving into Mismagius. But that's still 10 encounters, including some really unique Pokemon that I don't use very often. So I'm really looking forward to this. Just as a quick reminder before we start, I play with Species Clause, so I'll be able to reroll encounters until I get a unique encounter, but I can only use one of each unique evolution line. Okay, let's see how it goes. I start the game by using a random number generator to pick one of the 3 starters. None of these losers are eligible encounters, and there isn't one that will inherently give my rival a harder team to face, since the encounters in this challenge have pretty varied typing. So the number generator decides that my starter is Chikorita. However, as soon as I get Pokeballs, I head to Route 29 to catch my true starter, a Hoothoot. I name him Lancelot, and the journey begins. The first step, though, is to release Chikorita into an unsuitable environment where there are no other members of its species so that it's forced to live out the rest of its life in a depressing isolation. On Route 30, I catch a Rattata, who is exclusively a night encounter on this route. So I name him the Bruce. Unfortunately, the Bruce has the ability Run Away instead of Guts, which is a bit disappointing since Guts Raticate can actually be very powerful. But that's okay. The Bruce is still able to eviscerate Youngster Joey and his Rattata. Youngster Joey must have been born without shame and without social skills, because first he insults me by saying that I look weak. Then I crush him in a battle. And immediately after that, he asks for my phone number. So I deny his request to exchange digits, to which Joey responds, "But I won't lose to you again," which is technically true. On Route 31, I catch a Spinarak and name her Joan of Arc. I also go to Bellsprout Tower to catch a Ghastly, which I name Mare. And then, after a bit of training, it's time for our ragtag team of nocturnal animals to take on the first gym leader, Falkner. In my last Nuzlocke video where I was Nuzlocking HeartGold, I vented about how I'm not a huge fan of the Johto games, and people who are fans of them got a little defensive. So I won't be blatantly bashing them in this video, but I would like to reiterate how ridiculous it is that the first gym leader of a brand new region with 100 new Pokemon has a Pidgey and a Pidgeotto on his team. Hoothoot and Noctowl are right there. Anyways, Falkner leads not Hoothoot, who goes down to 2 bites from the Bruce as it just uses a single sand attack. And then Pidgeotto comes out. Thanks to the sand attack, I miss a tail whip, and Pidgeotto goes for a tackle. So on the next turn, I switch in Mare, who is immune to Pidgeotto's tackle. and then I set up a curse, which will take out a fourth of Pidgeotto's health each turn. It opens me up to a crit from Gust, but I am unpunished. From here, I switch to Lancelot, put the Pidgeotto to sleep, and then a few turns later, the Pidgeotto goes down, winning us the first gym badge. After that, I head south to Azalea Town. On Route 32, Wooper is an eligible nighttime encounter, but so is Zubat, so I can only get one of them from that route. So the first thing I do is I go through Union Cave and get to Route 33, where I am guaranteed to catch a Zubat. This way, I can ensure a Wooper from Route 32. I name the Zubat Brienne, and then I backtrack to Route 32 and catch the Wooper, who I name King Arthur. With that, I have a full team. Mare, Brienne, and King Arthur will all be pretty awesome members of the team once they fully evolve, but that won't actually be for a few more gyms since our level cap is still pretty low. Even so, the second gym leader Bugsy doesn't pose much of a problem, since most of my Pokemon resist or are just simply immune to all of Bugsy's attacks. I lead Brienne, who hits a strong wing attack as Scyther just sets up. Then I switch to Mare, who can only be hit by U-turn. This causes the Kakuna to come out, which can only do damage with Poison Sting. So after a few turns, Kakuna goes down, and then Scyther comes back out. But again, it can only use U-turn, so after doing just a little bit of damage, the Metapod comes out, which can't actually hit Mare with its only attacking move, Tackle. So a few turns later, it goes down, and Scyther comes back out again. It sets up with a Focus Energy, but 2 Nightshades from Mare knock it out. I was again risking a crit here, which was extra dumb since Focus Energy raises the chances of critical hits, but I remain unpunished. That's badge number 2. Next is our first official battle with our rival, Dayman. But Dayman isn't particularly difficult, save for his Quilava, which usually just wastes time using Smokescreen. So after some switches to get around status conditions, we're able to take him out without too much trouble. I'm just going to go ahead and skip all of the other rival fights in this run, since I don't actually lose any Pokemon in them, and they're all fairly uninteresting. After that, I make my way to Ilex Forest, where I can now catch an Oddish. I name him Galahad, and he replaces Joan of Arc on the team. Next up is Whitney, and since her level cap is level 19, I'm still not able to evolve any of my first stage Pokemon, so this could theoretically be pretty difficult. Whitney's Miltank is very strong for this point in the game, and it is notorious for sweeping through teams and being an utter brick wall. But I have a trick up my sleeve, and her name is Mare. Thanks to Mare's ghost typing, Miltank can't hit her with any of her normal type moves. She also can't use Attract on Mare. The only thing she can do is use Rollout, which I can just keep in check by teaching Mare the TM for Protect, which I purchased from the Goldenrod department store. I can also set up a Curse, which will kill the Miltank after a few turns. If you're struggling with Miltank, Ghastly is actually a great counter to it. The one way that this could go poorly is if Mare goes down to a random Metronome move from the Clefairy. So I lead the Bruce, who takes it out with a few headbutts. Then the Miltank comes out, and I'm expecting a Stomp. So I switch in Mare since she's immune to normal type moves. Right. Miltank has the ability Scrappy, which makes normal and fighting type moves hit Ghost. That's, not great. Unfortunately, Mare goes down here to give me a free switch to Galahad. I hit a Stun Spore, but the Miltank has a Lumberry, so I have to go for another one. But then Miltank uses Attract, and Galahad is utterly mesmerized by Miltank's beauty. I don't blame you, bro. Fortunately, Galahad connects with a second Stun Spore on the next turn, which gives us a fighting chance. I switch to Lancelot and set up a Reflect. Then I use a Growl on the next turn. Now Miltank really isn't doing much with its stomps. So I switch to King Arthur and start using Tail Whips. After Miltank hits an Attract, I switch to Galahad and use a Protect. I figure, why not try some light PP stalling? On the next turn, I switch to Brienne. And Miltank breaks through those stat drops with a critical hit, killing poor Brienne in one shot. A critical hit was inevitable, but it still sucks. I bring in the Bruce, who uses the classic Paraflinch combo to finish off Miltank, winning us a hard-fought and somewhat lucky third gym badge. As a reward for abusing hacks, the Bruce evolves into Raticate, and subsequently, literally every single one of my surviving team members evolves too. First is King Arthur, who evolves into Quagsire after beating this fire breather guy, who then asks me for my phone number by saying, "Mostly I breathe fire, but want to exchange phone numbers?" Which is just about the craziest way I've ever heard to ask someone for their phone number. Wait, would that work? Anyways, next up is Lancelot, who evolves into a Noctowl. The unbanched Joan of Arc also evolves into Ariados. And lastly, Galahad evolves into Gloom. I also make the trek all the way to Olivine City to do some night fishing, where I have a 1% chance of fishing up a Staryu with a good rod. Surprisingly, it doesn't take that long, and I catch the Staryu and name it Siegfried. Siegfried unfortunately has the ability Illuminate, which is a horrible ability compared to the pretty good ability Natural Cure, but Siegfried will still be an invaluable member of the team. Like, not to ruin the suspense, but Starmie is a phenomenal Pokemon and can beat large portions of the game all by itself. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Next up is Morty, but since most of his Pokemon only know ghost moves, any remotely decent Normal-type Pokemon can beat him pretty handily, and I actually have 2 of those. So I choose to use the Bruce, who uses Crunch to sweep through Morty's entire team. His Gengar is able to survive one Crunch, but it misses a Hypnosis. Not that the miss actually really matters, since the Gengar's only damaging move that isn't Ghost-type is Sucker Punch, which can just be stalled out by not using attacking moves. Anyways, that's badge number 4. At this point, I'm given the HM for Surf, and I realize that Siegfried will no longer learn any useful moves by level up, so it's time to evolve it into a Starmie. But to do that, I need a Water Stone. And to get a Water Stone, I need to get 2,500 points from the Pokeathlon. Of all the side minigames in the main series of Pokemon, the Pokeathlon is by far the best. It's actually kind of fun, and I do have fond memories of playing through all the different games when I was a kid. But now that I'm in my twilight years, and the touchscreen of my Nintendo DS is a bit damaged, this is a lot more difficult and a lot more tedious. But eventually, I get the points needed, and Siegfried evolves into Starmie. Watch him dance! My next stop is Cliff Cave, where I can catch a Misdreavus. I name her Ingale, and she replaces a Lancelot. I'm excited to get to use Misdreavus because it's a Pokemon that I don't have much experience with. Up next is Chuck, so I lead my newest team member into his Primate. I wasn't expecting the Primate to outspeed, but it does, which means that it's able to set up a double team, so I miss my Psybeam. Primate uses Rock Slide on the next turn as I connect with the Psybeam. I decide to risk a crit here, and although I'm not punished, I do miss another Psybeam. So next is a switch to King Arthur. Primeape uses Leer, as King Arthur just takes it out with a Surf. Chuck's second and final Pokemon, Polywrath, comes out next, and immediately puts me to sleep with Hypnosis. So I switch to Ingale to dodge a Focus Punch. Then I use Pain Split to gain some health back, and Polywrath hits another 60% accurate Hypnosis. So I switch to Siegfried, who gets hit by a Surf. I do damage with Swift for a few turns, as Polywrath hits another Hypnosis. So I switch to Ingale, who just sleeps for a turn. And then I switch to Galahad. I go for a Stun Spore with Galahad, which fortunately connects, and then on the next turn, I outspeed the Poliwrath and hit it with a critical hit Mega Drain, winning us the 5th gym badge. The 6th gym leader is Jasmine in Olivine City, but her level cap is actually higher than the 7th gym leader, Price, in Mahogany Town, so I go ahead and take him on first. Before that, there is some Team Rocket stuff, but other than dealing with the moral implications of witnessing Lance murder a man with his Dragonite, there's nothing much to report here. Oh, I also do catch a Venonat on Route 43. I name him Of Cups, and then put him in the box. Yet again, he has the worst of the 2 possible abilities, so he's born to be a bench warmer. Before challenging Price, I decide that it'll be a much easier battle if Siegfried knows Thunderbolt. Unfortunately, the only way to get the TM for Thunderbolt is at the Goldenrod Game Corner. But unlike the good old days where you could just buy your way to success by spending money on coins, the only way to get coins in this game is to play the Voltorb Flip minigame, which is a minigame that is 50% skill-based logic, 50% luck-based random selection, and about 100% existential self-loathing. Seriously, nothing else in my life has made me reconsider my intelligence quite like Voltorb Flip level 3. After a very, very long time, I finally get the 10,000 coins necessary to purchase the TM for Thunderbolt, and I teach it to Siegfried. Then I take on Price. And somehow this stupid seal survives a Thunderbolt. Siegfried, what are you doing? You are definitely getting some special attack EVs after this fight. Piloswine comes out second, and at least that goes down to a single Surf. And then last is Dewgong, which goes down to 2 Thunderbolts without it doing much damage. That's badge number 6. From here, it's a backtrack to Olivine City to take on Jasmine. She leads a Magnemite, and I lead King Arthur. King Arthur knocks out the Magnemite with a Mud Shot, and then Steelix comes out. It does survive a Surf, but it retaliates with just about the saddest Iron Tail I've ever seen. So Surf takes it out on the next turn. This also gives me another level, so King Arthur learns Earthquake. Jasmine's second Magnemite actually outspeeds King Arthur and manages to hit a Supersonic, but King Arthur is having none of that crap and just knocks it out with an Earthquake. That's an easy victory for badge number 7. Next, I have to head to Goldenrod City to wrap up the whole Team Rocket storyline. On the way, I stop by and say hi to my fire breather friend, who tries to use the door in the face technique to get me to exchange phone numbers with him after I deny his request to breathe fire with him, which seems like a very bizarre and very dangerous thing for a grown man to do with a random 10-year-old. Anyways, time to defeat a crime syndicate. There's not much to report here. It's all pretty easy because most of the rocket trainers are really underleveled. The one fight I'll point out here is against Executive Petrol, who has nixed his entire team from our previous fight and replaced it with 5 coughing and a wheezing, all of which know self-destruct. This is the one fight out of all Pokemon games that feels like a deliberate middle finger to Nuzlockers. Fortunately, with a ghost Pokemon, this isn't an issue. Let's go ahead and just fast forward to the 8th and final gym, Claire and her dragon types. Claire can be really difficult. Fortunately, after another intense bout of Voltorb Flip, I'm able to get the TM for Ice Beam and teach it to Siegfried, so that we can at least easily take care of her Dragonairs. But the Kingdra is still an issue, and thanks to its ability Sniper... Oh, okay, this is really embarrassing. I'm not sure why I'm struggling so hard on this puzzle. Can we just fast forward through this? Great, okay, thank you. Anyways, as I was saying, because of Kingdra's ability Sniper, it's really difficult to play around critical hits, since basically nothing will survive a ×3 Sniper boosted critical hit from Kingdra. Since I don't have any way to knock it out in one shot, we kinda need to just get lucky and hope it never crits. Claire leads Gyarados, but a Thunderbolt from Siegfried takes it out in one shot. Her 2 Dragonair go down to an Ice Beam apiece thanks to a boost from Never Melt Ice. And then last is the Kingdra. I hit an Ice Beam as Kingdra retaliates with a Dragon Pulse. Another hit will definitely kill me, so I have to make a switch here. So I switch to King Arthur. And there's that critical hit. Rest well, King Arthur. You are a god amongst men. But with that sacrifice, we get a safe switch into Ingale, who is able to set up a Perish Song. This guarantees us the win, but it remains to be seen how many other team members will fall. On the next turn, I switch to Joan of Arc, who thankfully dodges a crit. She then uses Protect to stall another turn of Perish Song. And on the last turn of Perish Song, I switch to Galahad, who tanks the Hydro Pump, and then the Kingdra goes down. Victory is ours with only one death. May he whoop in peace. With that, it's time for the Elite Four, but before that, I finally evolve Galahad into Vileplume with a Leaf Stone. I've delayed it until now because Gloom doesn't actually learn Giga Drain until level 47. So after another bout of Pokeathaloning, I get a Leaf Stone and Vileplume joins the team. Then we need to fight Ho-Oh on the top of Bell Tower. It's kind of funny that in Generation 2, the concepts of legendaries just used to be, what if there was a big bird on the roof of that building? And then by the time we get to Generation 4, it's like, what if the legendaries literally controlled all of space and time? Well, this bird goes down to 2 Surfs, and then the Kimono Girl judges me for knocking it out. If that is what you believe, we will not try to convince you otherwise. What does that even mean? What kind of passive-aggressive nonsense is that? Anyways, now it's time for the Elite Four. Here's my final team, leveled up to the level cap of 50 to match Lance's Dragonite. Last time I did a HeartGold Nuzlocke, I wiped to the champion. Come to think of it, I actually wiped to the champion a lot. Well, let's see if we've got what it takes. First up is Will, the Psychic-type trainer. But Will is a complete sweep with Misdreavus. In HeartGold and Soul Silver, you can get a choice specs from the Lake of Rage, so any halfway decent special attacker can turn into a monstrous sweeper. Shadow Balls clear through Will's entire team. Gosh, if only the Johto games had introduced a Psychic-type Pokemon that was immune to Ghost types, then surely it would be on Will's team to prevent this instead of a second Xatu. Anyways, up next is Koga, but most of Koga's Pokemon are weak enough to be knocked out by a single Choice Specs boosted Surf from Siegfried. His Ariados and Fortree go down to a single Surf. Muck is third and barely holds on to a Surf, but goes down a few turns later as it just wastes time setting up with Minimize. We are lucky that we don't miss any of our Surfs, but Muck can't do much to Siegfried anyways. Surf also one-shots the Crobat and the Venomoth, and that's Koga defeated. Third is Bruno, who is a little more tricky than usual since we don't have access to the TM for Psychic. I lead with Ingale, who is immune to all of Hitmontop's attacks. After an unsuccessful dig, thanks to Levitate, and a waste of a full restore, Ingale takes it out with a few Choice Specs boosted Psybeams. Next is Hitmonlee, so I hit a Psybeam, and Hitmonlee retaliates with a Swagger. So I switch to the Bruce to take a Blaze Kick, and then kill the Hitmonlee with a Headbutt. Third is Machamp, and I'm expecting a Cross Chop, so I switch to Ingale, who dodges it. Then I hit a Psybeam as Machamp retaliates with a Rock Slide. I'm a little worried that a second Psybeam won't kill the Machamp after the Citrus Berry recovery, but a quick calc tells me that it will, so I go for the safe kill. Fourth is Hitman Chan, which will randomly go for one of the elemental punches here. I switch to Joan of Arc, who gets hit by a Thunder Punch. Then Hitman Chan uses Fire Punch, but an Aqua Berry halves the damage and I retaliate with a Poison Jab. On the next turn, a Shadow Sneak finishes it off before Hitman Chan can attack. Last is Onyx, for some reason, so I switch to Siegfried, who gets tickled by a Rock Slide, and then I kill the Onyx with a Surf on the next turn. That's Bruno defeated. Fourth is Karen, who can be a little tricky since her Umbreon likes to use Double Team, and there's not a super fast way for me to kill it. I decide to lead with Joan of Arc, who has a Choice Scarf to outspeed the Umbreon. I hit a Nightshade, and Umbreon just opts for damage instead of Double Teams, so 2 more Nightshades take it out. Next is Murkrow, so I switch to Siegfried. A Pluck eats my Colbur Berry, which would have given me a safe switch into a Dark-type move later. On the next turn, Thunderbolt knocks out the Murkrow. Next is Vileplume, so I switch to Lancelot, who gets hit by a Petal Dance. An Air Slash, followed by an Extra Sensory, finish off the Vileplume. Then Houndoom comes out. I can one-shot it with Siegfried, but a critical hit Dark Pulse will kill me. There's no reason for it to use Dark Pulse though, since Flamethrower will always do more damage to Noctowl. But sometimes the AI of these games is a little bit unpredictable. I decide to risk it, and it pays off as the Houndoom just uses Nasty Plot. Then a Surf cleanly knocks it out. Gengar is last, but it has a terrible moveset of Focus Blast and Lick, so 2 Surfs take it out after it just misses a Focus Blast. With that, the Elite Four is defeated, and it's time for Lance. Siegfried is able to handle all of his Pokemon, but the problem is that I need to be able to outspeed his Aerodactyl, since a critical hit Crunch will one-shot Siegfried. As a result, I need to use a Choice Scarf. This means I'll have to switch Siegfried in and out so that I can switch between the moves needed to one-shot all of Lance's Pokemon. I need to use Thunderbolt for the Gyarados, Ice Beams for the Dragonites, and Surfs for the Aerodactyl and Charizard. And unfortunately, in order to get clean switches back into Siegfried, I'll need to sack some Pokemon. Lance leads Gyarados, so a single Thunderbolt takes it out. Then Dragonite comes out, which knows Thunder. So in order to switch to Ice Beam, I need to pivot through the Bruce. He is able to dodge a Thunder and manages to do some solid damage to the Dragonite, but ultimately, a few turns later, he goes down. In retrospect, I could have switched back to Siegfried on the turn that Lance healed his Dragonite, but I didn't realize that at the time. Either way, I think letting the Bruce go down is the safer play. Good night, my good knight. Siegfried comes out and knocks out the Dragonite with an Ice Beam. The second Dragonite comes out and also goes down to an Ice Beam. Then it's the Aerodactyl, which actually won't go down to a single Ice Beam. So I switch to Lancelot. He takes a Crunch pretty well, but he's not able to survive the Rock Slide on the next turn. Another soul lost, but Siegfried will avenge. A Surf kills the Aerodactyl, and then Charizard comes out. So obviously it too goes down to a Surf. And last is Lance's level 50 Dragonite, so we need one more sacrifice. I switch in Joan of Arc, who gets just completely demolished by an Outrage. Peace be with you, Joan. Siegfried comes back in, but it's actually not quite over yet. My Ice Beam damage on this Dragonite is a range, and there's exactly 1 damage roll that will leave Dragonite with only 2 HP. So I could definitely still lose here, but the odds of this happening are 1 in 16, aka about the same chance as a critical hit. So, Siegfried clicks Ice Beam, and she gets the one-shot. That wins us the battle and the run. That was a really fun challenge. Siegfried obviously carried most of the run, but there were still some challenging spots, and it was awesome to be able to use a handful of Pokemon that I normally don't get to use. Like, I don't think I've ever used a Mischievous in any playthrough, so that was pretty cool. As always, thank you so much for watching and for all your continued support. If you enjoyed watching, please like the video and subscribe. Or don't. I don't know. But I do know that you should follow me on Twitter and Twitch to keep up with my streams of future challenges. And you should also join the Flygon HG community Discord to make recommendations for future challenges. I'm always looking for suggestions. So stay tuned for more Nuzlocke videos, and until then, remember to always, always, always play around the critical hit.